I want to recognize our Kurdish friends who have been such steadfast and good allies for so long. The Secretary today, September 17th, Secretary Gates said the following, former Secretary of Defense Gates. The reality is they're not going to be able to be successful against ISIS strictly from the air or strictly depending on the Iraqi forces or the Peshmerga or the Sunni tribes acting on their own, Gates said. So there will be boots on the ground if there's to be any hope of success in the strategy. And I think that by continuing to repeat that the U.S. won't put boots on the ground, the President, in effect, traps himself. Now, Mr. Secretary, I've talked to so many people who are military experienced, who have been on both sides on this issue. They all agree with Secretary Gates' assessment. And that's just the reality. And there are some of us that place a great deal of confidence in the opinion of people like Secretary Gates, General Keane, the architects of the surge, so many others. Now, is it your view that the Syrian opposition is viable? Hello.
Hello, Senator. I'm taking you so seriously, I'm ready to know.
Is it your view the Syrian opposition is viable?
The Syrian opposition has been viable enough to be able to survive under difficult circumstances,
Good.
to hold lines, but not yet. But they still have some distance to go, and we need to help them go that distance.
Right. And they obviously need our assistance in weapons and training, which you are going to embark on. Are you surprised sometimes at the degree of disinformation that members of Congress will swallow whole? Like there's been a ceasefire agreement between the Free Syrian Army and ISIS, put out by ISIS. Does that surprise you sometimes?
Senator.
No, it doesn't surprise
sometimes.
Doesn't surprise
Sometimes.
I got it.
No.
Okay. The hero of this piece so far, in my view, is a guy who's going to testify here after you, Robert Ford, Ambassador Ford. He did a magnificent job at the risk of his own life, riding around Damascus in his support of the Free Syrian Army. Now, here's what he's going to say in his testimony. The moderate armed opposition's biggest enemy is not the Islamic State. It is the Assad regime, which has killed far more Syrians than has the detestable Islamic State, and they won't stop fighting the Assad regime even as they advance against the Islamic State. But you're saying ISIL first. So we're going to train and equip the Free Syrian Army, and they're going to be fighting against Assad, who they view as their #1 enemy. I agree with Ambassador Ford's assessment, but you're saying ISIL first. So we're telling a young Syrian today, I want you to join the Free Syrian Army. You got to fight ISIL first. And by the way, those barrel bombs that are being dropped on you and these attacks from the air that have massacred so many Syrians, we're not going to do anything about that. I think at least we owe the Free Syrian Army negate the air attacks that they will be subjected to when they finish their training and equipping and go into the fight. So why is it that we won't at least neutralize Bashar Assad's air activity, which has slaughtered thousands and thousands and thousands, 192,000 dead, 3 million refugees, and we're not going to do anything about Assad's air capabilities? And finally, ISIL first, that's what you're telling these young men who really view Assad as the one who has slaughtered their family members, not ISIL, as bad as ISIL is. So how do you square that circle, Mr. Secretary?
Well, you square it this way, Senator, and first of all, let me just say a word. I think everybody knows, I had the pleasure of working with Robert Ford in the department from the day I arrived there.
We share admiration for him.
And we worked very closely together. I have huge respect and admiration for him. And he and I worked many long hours with the Syrian opposition, and I respect his opinion, et cetera. He is correct that they won't stop fighting the Assad regime. I understand that. We understand that.
They not only won't stop fighting, it's their primary goal.
Well, it is, except...
Come on, I know too many of them, John. Go ahead.
I understand. It is. I'm not denying that. But they also are fighting ISIL. They're up in Aleppo right now fighting ISIL. But they also are fighting ISIL. They're up in Aleppo right now fighting ISIL. They're fighting ISIL in other places. They threw them out of Idlib province. They are engaged in fighting ISIL. And our belief is, I bet you, I hope Robert Ford believes, that they will actually get stronger as a result of ISIL being removed from the field.
Are you not going to protect them from airstrikes?
Well, I think what we need, yes, I think what we need, that's a legitimate concern. And it is a concern that I would need to address with you in a classified session for reasons I think you well understand. And I think Robert Ford well understands that.
I think the Free Syrian Army would like to understand, too.
Well, and if we have a good classified session and other good things happen here, who knows? The important thing is for us to recognize that if ISIL continues doing what it's doing, and I think you know this, without being stopped, and if we hadn't stood up when we did stand up and work with the Peshmerga and help them to push back and retake Mosul Dam and so forth, they were threatening Baghdad, and they were threatening more. And if they did that sufficiently...
We're talking about Syria.
No, I know, but I'm about to come back.
Army.
I'm about to come back because
Thank you. I'm running out of time.
That pertains to their capacity then to focus on Assad, and it might be not the Free Syrian Army, but ISIL that you see in Damascus. And ISIL bringing al-Nusra and other people to them because of the level of their success. Clearly, many people have told us in the region, success breeds success. And many of the people who've come to ISIL have come because it seemed as if they weren't being opposed. We believe that transition works to the benefit of the moderate opposition, works ultimately to all of our benefit by removing ISIL from the field.
You cannot ask people to go and fight and die unless you promise them that you will defeat their enemy and defeat them right away. You can't say, wait until we defeat ISIL. People will not volunteer for such.
I don't believe that it's going to be ultimately a wait and see, because I don't believe, number one, that the people supporting the opposition in various parts of the region are ever going to stop until the Assad problem is resolved. And number two, I don't believe ISIL's going to, I don't believe that the moderate opposition will obviously stop in that effort. So therefore, there will be these two prongs. There's no way to avoid that.
I hope there's two prongs and not ISIL first, that message is not given to these brave young people we're asking to sacrifice.
Well, if we don't stop ISIL first, there may not be much left of the other prong.
John.
Senator Murphy.
That means we can't take on two adversaries at once.
It's not
that's
us.
Bogus and false.
I know your two colleagues would like to go at it for the rest of the session, but
No.
I'm sorry.
We have a great tradition. I believe in John's adage that a fight not joined is a fight not enjoyed. So we always have a great time.
Senator Coons.